Okay, so good evening. My name is Noemi Herzig, and I'm the Director of Jewish Cultural Arts and Education at the JCC in Ann Arbor. Some housekeeping items. We are recording this session. We activated the closed caption feature. Click on the CC icon on the bottom of your screen if you would like to use it. All attendees are muted. Please use the chat feature to send in your questions. The views expressed by Chuck Newman and his guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Ann Arbor JCC. All previous conversation recordings can be found on the JCC webpage at jccannarbor.org. And now it is my pleasure to call on our host, Charles Newman.
Thank you, Noemi, and thanks to the Jewish Community Center of Ann Arbor for sponsoring us this evening. Also, thanks to all of you who are attending and to our guests who we will be hearing from shortly. We've got one of the two have been able to connect, and I'm sure that the other will before our evening together is over. My first guest is Shanay Watson-Whittaker. She's a political activist and a strategic partnership manager for Michigan Voice. And we're going to learn more about what Michigan Voice is shortly. And you will see how she lives by her hero, Shirley Chisholm's quote, "If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair." This is not a shy individual, and appropriately so. So maybe we could start. Shanay. Tell us about this business you have with your sister. Oh no, yes, you are muted. I'm asking you to unmute yourself. I don't know if you can. Noemi, could you unmute Shanay for us, please? As I was saying to some of you who were on earlier,
thank you.
We've had no problems connecting and no technical problems when our guests were from Israel or Germany or Ukraine, but Detroit, it's tougher apparently. So Shanay, tell us a little bit about your business with your sister.
Well, I am a partner with my sister for Blue G Black Girl Media. We are a social media team that our audience is mostly African American women from ages 18 to seasoned saint status. So that's something I do on the side, outside of the work that I do for Michigan Voices and whatever political activism work that I do and volunteer my time.
You say on the side, you can't have much time on the side because tell us a little bit about your family.
Yes, I am one of 7 sisters and brothers. I'm originally from the Bronx, New York. Most of my family's still in the Bronx or New York City and New York State, like Rockland County, Westchester County as well. And I was raised primarily by a single mom, a college educated woman. She went through some things, and I'll talk more about that. And she raised us, and we were mostly influenced by our grandmothers. They were the ones that really took to us and took care of us and nurtured us. And I think if it wasn't for either of my grandmothers, I don't think I'd be here right now.
I can say the same thing. They were amazing women, both of them. If you have questions, please put them in chat. So when we get a little bit more time, when we get time later, we'll answer as many of them as we can. And what's the mission of Michigan Voices?
Well, we are a backbone organization of civic engagement organizations throughout the state of Michigan. We are BIPOC led. Many of our organizations are BIPOC led or BIPOC focused. They're located throughout this entire state. We have organizations that are based in Grand Rapids, of course, here in Metro Detroit, as well as in rural Michigan. We have organizations that are located in rural Michigan, in southwestern Michigan, Benton Harbor, Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, Battle Creek. So we're all over the state. And again, we are a backbone organization. We help our organizations who are doing the work in the communities give them resources they need to succeed. For example, if they are doing any kind of civic engagement work, which for example, GOT, voter registration, excuse me, we supply them with tools and technology to make sure they have that, because our groups represent the most marginalized communities in Michigan. And unfortunately, they don't have access to resources that other larger organizations have. So we want to make sure that when they're talking to the communities and they're getting these people registered to vote, that they have built relationships with their constituents. And then they're the ones that are the better messengers, and they're the ones that can influence people to participate in politics. Because, as you know, we have an election year this year, and
So I've
it looks,
heard.
yes, and it looks like it's all about turnout. So groups like ours at Michigan Voices, they make sure that their people are out there, talking to everyday people about what's going on. But not only do they do that, they're the folks that go into to these neighborhoods, and they do food drives, they do laundry drives for detergent, they do baby showers for community members, they have dance classes, hustle classes. One of our organizations has a doll making class to help Black women and girls build their self esteem. So it's not just civic engagement work. They use their creativity, they use their know how to make sure that the folks that need to listen to what's going on today, they're out there and going to vote in during this cycle.
How old is Michigan Voices? When it
Michigan,
was?
yes, Michigan Voices started in 2006. We were originally Michigan Voice, and then we changed in 2021 to Michigan Voices.
Um, and why did the organization uh, pick up the mantle for reproductive rights?
Well, I'll just start off. It was because this really started as a conversation that we wanted to have in the community, because we felt like reproductive rights was on the back burner in the 2020 election cycle. People stopped talking about it, but it didn't stop for marginalized people. That's something that is they're directly impacted every day. So what started off as a conversation rolled into a ballot initiative. But it also started with me sharing my personal story of how why marginalized people need to be centered in this conversation.
Could you
And
share that story with us?
yes, I can definitely. Again, everyone, I'm from the Bronx, New York. Um, I grew up in a house. Somebody in the chat said they were from the Bronx, so I'm from that Edenwald, um, Co-op City, let's see, Westchester, that area, Wakefield area of the Bronx. So it's middle class upbringing. And my grandmother died. When my grandmother died, my mom had broke down mentally. She turned to drugs. She also had a psychiatric breakdown. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder as well as schizophrenia. So, on all those pressures, she was a city employee. We lost our home. She couldn't afford to keep up with the water bill. She couldn't afford to keep up with the upkeep of the house. She couldn't afford to keep up with the electricity con edison. She couldn't afford it to do any of that. And it was to a point that she couldn't do it, that it was me as a 13, 14-year old out there negotiating with an electric company to keep our lights on. Eventually, we lost our home, and so we moved into a shelter. There, it got worse. uh, in that shelter, I became pregnant, but in that same spot, I was sexually assaulted. I was shot at. I've seen people get shot. It was just rats and roaches, and my mom was there, and she was getting worse and worse, getting taking these drugs, and I
Help me
just
again. How old were you at that time?
when I had chose to have an abortion, I was 17 years old. 17 years old. And I did that because I just couldn't see myself raising a child in that environment. I couldn't see myself. Banana Kelly, for people who come from the Bronx, that's where this shelter was. Ruth Fernandez houses in the Bronx. I just couldn't see myself having a child in that place. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody, even my worst enemy. So me sharing that story of how, why I had to make that choice, I think it started the ball rolling. And then people became more, we created a space where people could share their stories, and then we decided specifically and intentionally to center marginalized people, whether they are BIPOC, LGBTQIA, and rural people as well, because of the lack to access to reproductive care for people who are in poverty, or who are in abusive situations, or in situations like mine, which is a combination of that. We want to make sure that they have access to reproductive care. And I don't want, and I'm a mom of 4 girls and 2 boys now, and I don't want my kids, my daughters, to go through that. I don't want them to lack the resources that I had. And that's why we're here, and that's one of the reasons why we chose to move forward, is because we need to make sure that the next generation of young people have access to those resources. That it's not just resources for the few and for the privileged. It's resources for everybody. Reproductive care is health care, and a lot of us don't see the two, but it is health care. I don't know where I'd be. I don't want to know where I'd be if I didn't make that choice. So I just wanted to throw that out there for everyone.
You certainly are an authentic voice, and your story is a compelling one. Why do we need a constitutional amendment to protect reproductive rights?
I'm glad you asked that question, Chuck. Well, right now, we're at a crossroads where we're thinking that Roe v. Wade would be overturned through the Dobbs versus Jackson Mississippi abortion law case. Um, we expect a decision anytime within the next couple of months. And if the outcome is what we think it is, a 1931 abortion law goes into effect in Michigan, basically criminalizing providers who provide abortion services. So it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter when you decide, when you have this abortion, if you choose to have this abortion, that a doctor can be prosecuted. So it's just basically outlawing abortion in Michigan. But I also want to raise a point about our ballot initiative as well. It's not just about abortion, and that's the one thing that we did. We were intentional about with our group. We talk about birth control, access to birth control, access to care, post pregnancy care, access to pregnancy care, that those are guaranteed for every human being in the state of Michigan. So you have the right to those decisions before birth, after birth, if you choose not to terminate. So those things are guaranteed in this constitutional amendment.
Do you find that there's a fair amount of ignorance among the voters about why we need this amendment or constitutional amendment?
Yes, I mean, I don't think it's just ignorance. I think what it is that people just, we haven't put it on our radar, and that's to the detriment of people who have been doing the work for years. I think that people have everyday issues that they're thinking about, whether it's, putting food on a table, paying their bills, uh, getting their kids to school every day, that it's become an afterthought. And again, what I said before is reproductive care is health care, and we have to start seeing it that way. I think once the Supreme Court comes down with their decision, people will be more invested in the topic. And I just think that right now people aren't paying attention, and just don't think it's possible for Roe to be overturned.
So Charles, I just want to let you know that Renee is in on the phone, so we can unmute her anytime you want to talk to her.
All right. Well, that's reassuring. I certainly am sorry that you will not be able to see her on the Zoom call, but we will be able to hear her in due time. Thank you. Shanay, who else is in the coalition supporting reproductive freedom for all, which is the name of the ballot?
Yes. Thank you so much. Our partner organizations, from as little as Our Own Wall Street, which is based in Detroit, to the ACLU of Michigan, as well as Planned Parenthood Advocates of Michigan as well. So it's Michigan Voices Partners along with Michigan Voices. Planned Parenthood of Advocates of Michigan, and the ACLU of Michigan. So we are a large coalition. This has, again, been BIPOC led and BIPOC focused, LGBTQIA focused, as well as rural focused as well. So I'm repeating myself because I just wanted to make it clear that it's been very intentional how we've moved forward from where we were and when we started out with a discussion to now having a potential ballot initiative and having petitions out here.
We have a very well-informed audience. I know many of these folks, but for those few who might not know, what does BIPOC stand for?
Yes, Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And
Okay.
I apologize for using acronyms.
Well, as I said, this is a pretty hip group, but never hurts to clarify. How many signatures are needed and by when?
Yes, 425,000 signatures, a little over 425,000 signatures are needed. The due date for those signatures is July 11th of this year.
Uh, and of course, those all have to be valid signatures, and there's always some dropout.
Correct. And our goal is to collect beyond that. That's the bare minimum. Our goal is to collect upwards of 600,000 plus signatures.
Do you think you're going to need 600,000 or
Yes,
just want to be extra safe?
just to be extra safe because we have opponents that are on the other side that will question every single signature possible. So we want to make sure that we're on the right path. We have more than enough signatures needed to move forward.
Um, how's it coming?
It's coming along. People are very excited when you talk to them about the importance of this potential ballot initiative and what it does for people. And again, it being inclusive in language and not just talking about abortion changes the game for many individuals, specifically people of color. We talk a lot about health disparities within our group and even in our conversations that we have with people. We also talk about what's going on in Huron Valley Correctional Facility. There are pregnant people there that are being shackled. They are while giving birth. They're being chained and shackled, and guards are watching these people give birth and sharing their first moment with their children. And we think that that's unfair. So when we talk about inclusive language, we talk about those people who are incarcerated, who need to have relationships with their children. And we talk about health disparities with maternal health and Black women dying disproportionately more times while giving birth than white women. So those are the things that we've talked about to people, and people are engaged when it comes to these issues. And just because it's inclusive, I think that it's made a difference to people.
Um, when I'm talking to Renee, why don't you put in chat how people can help and where they can, how they can arrange to sign and to be collectors of signatures. I'm sure you could use some more collectors. Is that correct?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. And I will put the link in the chat. It's mireproductivefreedom.org.
Thank you. How are you organizing to get the required 600,000 signatures?
Yes, this is a partially paid and partially volunteer effort with people throughout the state of Michigan. We have a lot of groups that have been excited about this. And again, having conversations with people and getting them engaged and understanding the importance of protecting reproductive rights here in Michigan.
From what I'm hearing is that the firms who normally can assist if you pay them, collecting these signatures are having trouble finding enough folks to employ. So we really need everybody who believes in this to be an active part of this effort. Also, it's not cheap. I'm told it says $12 to get a signature, maybe more now because of the scarcity of collectors.
It is very, I'm not going to BS you. I'm from New York, so it's very expensive. But to me, it's worth it because, again, it's about protecting everyone's rights to make their decisions concerning their body and maintaining body autonomy and keeping politicians out of away from our bodies and from making decisions that directly impact us.
Thank you, Shanay. Renee, you're out there?
I sure am. I can't get on Zoom, but I'm here.
Well, thank you for your, your persistence.
Yes.
Yes.
My daughter is still trying to help me get on, but it just won't do it.
I understand. Renee Chelian is the founder of Northland Family Planning Centers, and she's a pioneer in abortion rights and care movement from even before Roe versus Wade, which gives Renee a particular perspective on what this is like. We heard where Shanay's passion for reproductive rights comes from, like when she told her personal story. Where does yours come from?
Well, I never want to see women have an illegal abortion like I had, for starters. Plus, I worked in Buffalo, New York before Roe and saw women traveling from a 6-state area. I actually think my daughter just got me on. Recording in progress. Okay.
Okay, so I need to unmute you. Give me 1 second. Let me find.
Where would we be without our children and in some cases grandchildren?
Então põe ela, faz ela também panela. Okay, we found her. Give us a second.
I want to remind everybody that this is a no budget show. So if the production values are a little weak tonight, cut us some slack. But what we do have is authenticity.
So to go back to what I was saying.
Hey, Renee.
Yes, hello. Thank you for having me on your show. And Shanay, it's good to hear you, see you again, as always. It not only comes from the fact that I had an illegal abortion when I was 15 years old, but because I worked in Buffalo before Roe, and we saw women come from a 6-state area in Canada. I worked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, working with a doctor, doing 100 abortions a day. And women drove, they hitchhiked, they were desperate. But that 300 people a week that we saw is a drop in the bucket compared to what we would have now with abortions being legal for 49 years and then suddenly becoming illegal. So my passion is to have safe legal abortions for women and pregnant people who can be treated with dignity and respect and not have to travel to another state.
And people were coming to New York because it was legal there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. How would your life have been different if you couldn't have gotten an abortion?
Oh, geez. I would have had a baby at 15. I would have gotten married to my boyfriend. I would have had to drop out of high school, and I would not have been allowed to return. There's nothing about my life that would have been the same.
And what brought you to Michigan?
Oh, I've always lived in Michigan. I was working for a doctor in Michigan who got a license to practice in New York, and he set up an office in Buffalo. So it was about a 4-hour drive from Detroit, and our patients from this area could get there in about 4 hours. Patients who came from Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, I don't know how long it took them, but I know that there was never a weekend in the almost 2 years that I worked there where I didn't have somebody sleeping, sometimes two somebody sleeping in my hotel room because they had hitchhiked, and there was no way I could send them back out to hitchhike home right after they had an abortion.
And what caused you to start your own clinic? What's that story?
Well, I worked for that same physician after Roe, but he ran an office like a medical model. You must come in and see the doctor and pay an office call to get your questions answered. I met someone who opened the 3rd clinic in the Detroit area, and I went to work for him. However, in 1976, I still was very unhappy with the way I thought abortion care should be provided. And my husband and I had been working 3 jobs each since we got married. We saved about $100,000. And I went to him and said, how would you feel about me opening my own clinic? And he asked me if I thought I could succeed. And I said, well, I don't think I can fail. I was 25 years old. If I would have been any older, I probably would have been terrified.
You would have known better.
Well, I opened the clinic, and from the day we opened, patients came, and we now have 3 clinics in the Detroit metropolitan area. And, you know, I've done abortion work literally my entire life.
Where are your 3 clinics?
One is in Southfield, one is in Westland, and one is in Sterling Heights.
Do your patients there differ among the various offices?
We have 3 distinct populations. Our Southfield office is more than 50% Detroit patients. The Sterling Heights office, you know, are East Siders primarily. And our Westland office is Ann Arbor to Taylor and downriver, and a lot of Toledo patients.
Do you remember when you heard the Roe versus Wade decision? How'd you feel?
Well, yes, I actually didn't know that it was working its way through the court. I mean, I was working 7 days a week, and I barely had time to keep up with the news. But I thought, oh my God, no one will ever suffer what I did again. Women won't have to travel anymore, and we can provide abortions where you live. And I was thrilled. I mean, that is what I remember as a 22-year-old girl.
And what's the feeling now among the folks you know in the abortion care world?
Well, we're devastated. I mean, I have friends with clinics in Texas, and so I've been living this nightmare with them since the late summer. It took me about 6 weeks to stop crying. The story doesn't get any better. And now it's happening in other states across the country. And we're actually going to the National Abortion Federation meeting next week. And so many of us are going because this is going to be the last meeting where abortion will be legal everywhere in the United States. I mean, even if it's just in name. And we know that any meetings from now on are going to have less and less states that have legal abortions. So even this meeting is about how do we help women travel? What service, how can we expand our clinics to take on the capacity of people from other states? I mean, I believe we're going to win this ballot initiative. I'm working really hard on it, and I don't let my mind think anything differently. So I'm preparing my clinics to handle patients that will be coming from other states. Right now, we're seeing patients from Ohio, Indiana, and we're seeing Texas patients.
Might you be opening another clinic across the border from Ohio?
Well, we're only 45 minutes from Ohio now.
Yeah,
So
I share your hope, certainly. However, I think it's all of us who share your passion that this be available to women to work to see that indeed that option will remain open in Michigan.
I hope that everyone that's listening goes to our website, which is, I want to make sure I get it right, reproductivefreedom.org, to find out where they can sign a petition and to donate. Any amount of money is appreciated, but we need people to sign these petitions now. And remember that this is about protecting someone that you love in the future. It may not be for you in the future. I mean, I'm certainly not ever going to need an abortion, and I know where to get them for my daughters. But someone that one of your listeners loves may need an abortion, and they should not have to travel many states away, incur those kinds of costs, and the protesters that will be surrounding those clinics. We need to keep abortion safe and legal in Michigan.
Have you had safety concerns for yourself or your staff? Has there been harassment? Has there been intimidation?
Well, we've always had harassment and intimidation. I've had 2 arsons, a chemical bomb attack, multiple death threats, bomb threats, protesters that are crazy. In fact, yesterday we had a blockade at my Southfield clinic, and the Southfield police had to make arrests, and are dealing with the FBI now because it's a federal crime to block the doors of an abortion clinic. But this is the 3rd one that I've had in 3 years. And so the antis have stepped up their game. And we also have armed security guards. We have escorts so our patients can safely and securely get into our parking lot. Everything, I try to stay one step ahead, but you know, this is also a constant battle.
What did you mean when you said long ago we realized we don't just treat a person's body?
Well, we treat the whole person. We have to talk to the patient about her feelings. Is she sure about her decision? Who has she talked to? Who's her support system? We want our patients to connect, what we call connecting the head and the heart. So someone may know in their head that an abortion is the best decision, but their heart may be breaking. And until they've done the work to connect those two, they won't be healthy emotionally after an abortion. So we try to give them the resources and tools so that they are as well and healthy after an abortion, emotionally as physically. So we want to treat them with respect, with dignity, and we also want to tend to their emotional needs. For example, we see patients with fetal anomalies. A lot of our 2nd trimester patients are fetal anomalies, and those are very wanted pregnancies, and they've chosen abortion because of an anomaly, whether it's lethal or not. And those patients have very different needs than the rest of our 2nd trimester patients. So we want to take good care of every single person that comes through our doors.
And what are some of the reasons that women want to or need to have an abortion?
Oh, that's the $1 million. And actually, that's one of my favorite questions, because my answer is there are as many reasons as there are people who choose abortion. Every single one of our patients has a different story. And I found out very quickly when I started working in abortion why there shouldn't be a jury of doctors or any individuals who get to decide yes or no, someone needs an abortion, because everyone's reason is very different. And they may not sound like the best reason to you or to me, but to them, it is the reason. And I want to show all the respect for whatever that person's reason and decision is.
One of the comments that I received prior to the show was, and I'm going to quote this, should abortion be used by careless or carefree women or couples as a mean of birth control at the expense of society and a limitation of scarce resources? Do you see that type of patient, a careless or carefree woman who's using abortion as birth control?
Well, that person in their judgmental sort of way, I'd like to ask them, have you ever had risky behavior? do you smoke cigarettes when you know it causes cancer? Have you ever gotten in a car when there's one too many person and not enough seat belts, or driven a short distance without putting your seatbelt on, had a couple drinks and thought, I'm pretty sure I'm okay to drive home? So people get pregnant from risky behavior in the same way. They don't think they're going to get pregnant. But I would ask that person, for however many abortions an individual woman has, is the punishment to make her have a baby that she can't take care of or doesn't want? I don't know. To me, that I say, let her have as many abortions as she needs in her lifetime, and don't bring a child into the world that she feels that she can't love or take care of. And adoption is out of the question for her.
And that went on to say, as it was in certain European nations as an annual vacation for hardworking mothers in the short term. Do you see any instances of that in your practice where women are coming because they want a vacation? So they got pregnant?
Not real, no. I don't think somebody's ever come in and said, I want an abortion because I'm going to the Bahamas. I mean, I think that's a fallacy.
I had to ask the question.
Of course.
What's a typical day for you?
Well, I have 3 clinics, seeing patients every day. And I'm not on the schedule, but it is checking in with the person who runs the clinics underneath me, because she has already checked in with the managers. I know how many patients are scheduled. The doctors have a schedule. I know if there's a patient problem or an issue almost right away, and we make decisions about how to handle them. But on a typical day is that the day goes smoothly, that our staff is committed to caring for pregnant people, that they come in doing their job, respecting and adhering to the mission of Northland. And most of the time that goes really well. I mean, since COVID, everything is a little different. We've had more staff who can't come into work, people who have changed jobs frequently, patients who do not want to wear masks, and we're a healthcare facility and they have to. And we, those are things that we deal with every single day.
Has the availability of, let me see, best way of characterizing this, medications, pills that can induce abortions had an effect on your business? I don't want to call it a business, your practice, because I can tell you are not doing this for the money. There has to be an easier way to make money.
Yes, when your home gets picketed and your children get terrified when they're young, when you're on a death list and the FBI comes to your house with federal marshals to see if your home is secure. No, you're not doing it for the money. I'm doing this because freedom isn't free. And I believe that every pregnant person has the choice. But I forgot your original question. I'm sorry.
Well, it wasn't a question. I was making the observation that you weren't doing this for the money. That's all.
Right.
And Shanay, I'm going to ask you the same question. What's your typical day? Well, then I'm going to, she needs to be unmuted.
I did.
Thank you so much. A typical day for me, it's not typical. There's the same thing every day. Renee could tell you. Well, with us, it's really talking to our partners and engaging them and seeing where they are with this ballot initiative and the petitions and the signatures, and making sure that they have the needs, the resources they have to succeed. So again, we represent 60 plus partners. About more than half of our partners are active in the ballot initiative with our work group. So just making sure they're in good spirits, making sure that they have everything they need, and making sure that they achieve the goals that they want to as an organization.
And I'm going to share something I learned, and what sort of struck me as amazing, that 1/4 of the women in Michigan have had an abortion. I just found that staggering.
One in 4 women in this country have had an abortion.
Yeah, it's just
we need them to speak out now, but the antis have done a pretty good job of adding shame and stigma to abortion, to the point that people are afraid to speak out. Mm-hmm. Shanay and I aren't. We know that once you tell your story, what happens is other people tell you their stories, and no one can ever hold anything over your head. But people are afraid to talk about their abortions and the positive effect that it's had on their lives.
And of course, Governor Whitmer has taken some action in her own, on her own authority. You want to share what that is with us? Or shall I?
Yes, she had filed a lawsuit going straight to the state Supreme Court, challenging the constitutionality of the 1931 law that bans, that prosecutes providers. So that's one of the cases. And Planned Parenthood, PPAM, Planned Parenthood, has another case. They have 2 separate cases. One with their 501c3, and the other one with their chief medical officer as well. So as they're coming to the courts as providers to stop anything from happening with if 1931 is triggered.
If I can add, Chuck, there are multiple approaches here. So those are 2. There will probably be more litigation, because litigation alone won't protect us. All what we would need is a change in the Michigan legislature or in the governor's office to pass a Texas law and any other kind of restriction. We need to pass this ballot measure to protect reproductive and abortion rights in the Michigan Constitution. And I did remember that you asked me about the abortion pill and if it had changed our practice. The abortion pill, probably 50% of our patients after 11 weeks you choose the abortion pill, but it is up to the patient what method she chooses. And the abortion pill is definitely going to make a difference in once states start banning abortion, but they're also banning getting the pill sent to people in their own states. So women will have to travel to a safe state. So it doesn't stop the traveling or the need to travel, and they have to receive the pills in that safe state. So they have to open a post office box or have to have a friend there. So the abortion pill, while it will certainly help many of those people, it's not going to solve everything.
Yeah, what interesting, Texas's law on this subject, it enables private citizens to sue anybody who aids or abets an illegal abortion, and for which this would be. And for every case that is successful, it authorized damages, in effect, a bounty of $10,000. So that's how Texas is dealing with this.
Well, and there are copycat bills in other states already. Some have passed, some have been introduced. What I want your readers to understand is, I missed the beginning when Shanay was talking about the Supreme Court. So I'm sorry, Shanay, I don't know exactly what you said, but you know, if Roe, one of the possibilities is Roe being overturned. Another one is that they uphold a 15-week ban. Well, a 15-week ban is not viability. So what is the difference between, say, a 6-week abortion, an 8-week abortion, or a 15-week abortion, which is nothing. And it opens the door to every state passing some sort of restriction under 15 weeks. But the third thing is the Supreme Court allowed the Texas law SB 8 to stand. And all a state would have to do is pass a copycat bill and effectively shut down every clinic. These vigilante laws, I mean, we have there is nothing else in this country where citizens can put a bounty on another citizen. But that is exactly what Texas has done. And because of the Supreme Court, the way the Supreme Court handled it, it will now have to be handled in the Texas state courts as it would be in every state that passes a copycat SB 8 bill. I mean, we're expecting by next year to only have 26 states in this country that have legal abortion.
Noemi, I haven't had a chance to look at the chat, but I see the number of comments, so there must be some. Would you like to share any questions?
Yes, there's comments. And Morris, I see you raised your hand, but please put your question on chat for us. So I have a personal question. I always wonder, these people that are picketing and so against abortion, why can't they take their energy and money and help those kids that are in foster cares, that have nobody that cares for them or wants them? Why can't they first start helping those kids? You need to be unmuted. So,
who are you asking?
Both of you. It's like, you know, those people are so against abortion, but babies that are born that people cannot take care of, they don't seem to care for those. It's, you know, so if you want to comment on that.
I have asked protesters in the past with a comment like, you know, you've been here every Saturday for 3 years. Can you imagine the difference you could have made in the life of a child if you were just in a big sister, big brother program? And they told me that that will not get them to heaven, but standing outside and trying to stop women from coming into the clinic will. And I mean, that's just one comment. It's probably about the time I stopped talking to protesters because they don't make any sense, at least not in my mind. They are trying to push their views off on other people. I mean, if you don't want an abortion, don't have one. But they harass and try to intimidate staff and patients to the point that, I mean, my Westland office has a huge number of protesters every single week. And there's nothing we can do about it. Try to keep our office as safe as possible, and the outside safe and the inside like a sanctuary. But these people also are the same Republicans who will not want to pay for childcare, who will not want to pay for health care or dental care. They don't like poor people, actually. And that is the really sad part. And Shanay, you want to add to that?
Yes, they don't like poor people. They don't like people of color. And it's quite evident in their in the policies that they support. They've eliminated just about every social safety net possible, or have reduced it for people who choose to have children and have children. And then they're demonized because they do have children and they don't have the resources they need to raise a child in a dignified way. So it's a lose-lose situation if you are poor. It's a lose-lose situation if you're BIPOC. They'll blame you for not being married, for being unmarried. It's just no win for those people, and it's for in a lot of ways it's like a dead end, talking to a brick wall, as my mother would say, my grandma would say. It's like talking to a brick wall. All I know is that the people that need to hear our voices the most are the people that we can persuade to support this ballot initiative. And I apologize for my dog.
They also hate gays, the entire LGBTQ community. Some of our escorts are in that community, and the vile things that come out of protesters' mouths. So from what they say and from what we have heard from some politicians, they would reverse gay marriage. They would, I mean, you already in Florida are not supposed to say the word gay. They want to eliminate birth control. We have 3 people running for Attorney General in Michigan who said they support banning all birth control. So people should wake up and know this is not just about abortion, which is why we have covered reproductive health care as broadly as we have in this ballot initiative, because their agenda is big.
And just to let you know, and I apologize for interrupting, Noemi.
Go ahead.
The arguments for Roe was made on the 14th Amendment. So was Loving versus Virginia. So is Obergefell when it comes to gay marriage. The same amendments were argued in front of the Supreme Court. So once that is struck down, we are in trouble when it comes to birth control. We are in trouble when it comes to gay rights, and we possibly be in trouble when it comes to interracial marriage, because we were all argued under the same 14th Amendment. So I just want to throw that out there for people to look it up, and you can see that as well.
Wow. So go ahead.
No, I was prompting you. Although since I do have the floor at the moment, and I'm asking this because I got this comment based on this, again, prior to the show. What do you say to people who feel that abortions aren't allowed because of what is in the Torah or the Bible?
I don't pretend to be a religious person or to know about every religion. I know that there are many faiths who support legal abortion, and I can't speak for them. I'm grateful that they do support legal abortion and offer support to our patients, but there's also Catholics for choice. There are other groups, Christian groups, that are for choice. And, I don't know, Shanay, can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, I'm a Christian. I was brought up in a Holy Ghost, holiness, Church of God in Christ, Baptist church, and I'm still pro-choice because I know that there are people in those denominations that have abortions. They may not say it publicly, but they've said it privately, or they've confided in me that they've had abortions. So I think that if, as a person of faith, I would say that's between me and God. That's that person and their deity. I'm personally against church. I'm for the separation of church and state, personally, and I would remind people that that was intentionally talked about with our founding fathers, and that that's between you and your maker. Now, if you want to impose it on somebody, that's especially me. That's when you violate my rights, and I'm not having that.
You're not.
Our patients talk about God a lot, and they will ask us, do you think I'll be punished? And we have to ask them, do you think God is a loving, forgiving God? Because if you do, then no, you won't be punished. I mean, I believe that God gave people brains to make the best decisions for their life and their families. I mean, more than 50% of our patients already have children, and they indicate to us that the reason that they're having an abortion is often because of the children they already have. One more child in the family throws everything off, and they won't make it. They won't be able to pay their bills. They won't be able to put food on the table. And they make that sacrifice for the children they already have.
Noemi, any other questions or comments?
Yes, there's several questions. One from way in the beginning is, why does it cost $12 for each signature?
That's an estimate that these firms that collect signatures charge.
I can say that there are competing ballot initiatives, other ballot initiatives, and there is a limit on workers that are available. So that's why it is out there. If you go to the Michigan State Board of Canvassers website, you can see that there are multiple petitions that are signatures that are being collected right now. So that's probably the biggest reason why, is that they're competing groups out there.
Okay. But we also have a great number of volunteers and volunteer groups who are collecting signatures, and that there's no cost. We're collecting signatures from our patients. several other clinics in the Detroit area are doing the same. And I'm waiting for my web people to finish putting a pop-up on our website that anybody can stop in our office and sign a petition. And, you know, Femmes for Dems are collecting them. Michigan Now is collecting them. There are our escorts, who they're a group of dedicated volunteers, are out collecting petitions. So, I mean, signatures, and that doesn't cost anything. So there's lots of volunteers doing it. Gathering paid, you know, using a paid company is just one way to get signatures. It's probably the way we'll get the most, but it's not the only.
I'm working with Femmes for Dems and others, and we may be the cavalry coming over the hill, but we'll talk about that privately. Anything, Noemi, we're about out of time. Anything else there that?
So one comment is here, why don't they channel their energy towards improving access to better healthcare, especially reproductive healthcare?
Do we have any other questions? Because those people aren't here to answer the questions. Yes.
Okay. So, well, a lot of those questions are surrounding that. Let me see.
Well, let me just say to anybody who's asked a question about those people, we wish we understood what those people's motivations were, but there is for some of the men, a real hatred of women, and for many, they believe that God talks to them, and they're the only ones who know how God thinks. So we can't answer any questions about why they do what they do.
Okay, so here is a question about SCOTUS will probably issue its anticipated ruling on June 30th. The Reproductive Rights Initiative will be voted on November. I would expect that it would go into effect in January. If successful, this would be a roughly 6-month gap under the best of circumstances. How would this be managed?
That's why there is already 2 litigation or 2 lawsuits filed, and there will probably be more once the decision is handed down. And with all attempts to stop the 1931 law in Michigan, and as long as we have Governor Whitmer, hopefully then we will continue abortion services as normal until the November election. Shanay, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I also wanted to add, we don't know what the future is going to hold for us. And one thing about this ballot measure it would guarantee that it is a fundamental right, regardless of who is elected to office.
Right.
Personally, I would love to see Governor Whitmer reelected. But at the same time, I just want to make sure that we have this in our back pockets, that we are protecting the people who need access to reproductive care the most vulnerable among us. That's, LGBTQIA folks, poor people, BIPOC people, marginalized people. They're the ones who need the most protection right now. I don't know about you, but my Christian faith tells me that it is my job to protect the most vulnerable in my community. And that's why I'm doing this as well.
All right, we do have to conclude, and the video of this particular show will be available. We will make it available to all of you. Please share it. I'm sure you share my opinion that this was a very valuable use of an hour. This is an extremely important issue, and we cannot be complacent. Far from it. We have got to do what we can do to see that this constitutional amendment passes for all of us. Now, normally—
Can I give the website one more time?
Yeah, put the website on the chat, yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
For sure, yeah.
And as I said, since you were all registered for this event, thank you very much. We have the ability to get back to you with this information as well. Normally these shows are every 2 weeks, but the important issues are coming much too quickly for that. Our next show will be this coming Sunday at 7 p.m. and I'm going to be interviewing Derek Miller of the Community Action Network here in Ann Arbor. And I'm going to talk to him about his experiences distributing aid in Ukraine and at the Polish border. Derek was a Marine. He served in Iraq, and he said he's never seen anything like what he saw there. So please join me if you can that. The week after that, on Tuesday, the 10th of May, my guest will be Nancy Wang, the Executive Director of Voters Not Politicians. And I'm going to interview her about protecting our rights to vote and the Promote the Vote 2022 ballot initiative. At some point in the near future, I want to have guests from Raise the Wage ballot initiative and Good Time ballot initiative. Now, I am going to, as I said, I'm going to have an event somewhere near my neighborhood where you can come and sign all of these petitions. And I want to get that in the next 10 days. So those of you who live in the Ann Arbor area, you'll have the opportunity to do 4 times the good in one stop. So thank you again, JCC, Noemi, all of you, and especially our wonderful, committed, courageous guests, Shanay, Watson-Whittaker, and Renee Chelian. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.